Welcome back, everybody. It's time now for Money Sense with Ellenbecker Investment Group. A lot of couples meet with a minister or a therapist before saying I do, but today we're going to tell you why you should also think about visiting a money coach before you walk down the aisle.
Karen Ellenbecker is the president of Ellenbecker Investment Group. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning.
Why don't people do this? We should all do this.
Well, you know, it's funny because people get married and they look for their opposite, and they're so excited about finding the opposite. I found my match, except when it comes to money. If you got your opposite, conflict, it's exactly what comes up. People, they fall in love and they get married, and all of a sudden, as life goes on, they realize that one of the opposites that they have is their discussions around money. And statistics tell us that that is one of the biggest issues for married couples, is actually talking about money.
So there's this study by the American Institute of CPAs. I bet that's an exciting group. Just kidding. Just kidding. And they found that more than a quarter, I'm going to get in trouble for that, more than a quarter of married couples say that disagreements over finances lead to arguments. I bet it's even more than that.
Well, you know, I think of one of the most funniest times I sat with a couple, and the husband kept saying, you spend too much money. I mean, we aren't saving, we've got to save more. She says, I save for you all the time. I cut coupons. And
you have to spend something in order to save,
to her,
right?
the word saving. So he had one idea of saving meant money in the bank, don't touch it for the future. And her idea of saving was, I cut coupons, I get things on deals, and that's a savings. But it wasn't going in the bank, and it was being saved for the future. So risk. What does risk mean to two people? What is savings and saving for the future? What does a home mean, and paying extra on the mortgage or not paying it?
Discussing some of this in advance.
Charge cards.
Yeah, so you have a list of things people can actually do, right?
Yes.
Before they tie the knot, starting with know each other's financial histories. Now, does this include like a credit check, for example? Know their credit score?
You know what? I think between two people actually knowing the credit score, because if you do go to try and buy a house and all of a sudden you find out there's all this debt. But a lot of people do get married knowing that there's debt there, but a lot of people get married not knowing that there's debt or poor credit scores, or charge cards. I mean, really making a list. What charge cards do we have? What balances on these cards do we have? What interest are we paying? So that you go in totally transparent. And I think that's the big thing, is going into a marriage transparent on your finances and your feelings about money. And we all come from different histories. I mean, one might come from someone who went through a bankruptcy with their family, and so they are holding on to that money really tight. And the other one might be in a family that money wasn't an object. And so there is a balance there. It's finding that happy medium, because someone who is so tight with the pennies can just drive you crazy, and someone who doesn't really understand savings can equally drive someone crazy. And there's the conflict.
And the whole issue of joint and separate accounts. I mean, I remember I've been married for 13 years now, and then I don't feel like people were as independent with their money as they are now. Now I know a lot of the younger couples are marrying and they have separate accounts.
Well, and that's another issue, because if you have a separate account, and let's say that one check gets put into one account, the husband maybe pays the mortgage, the wife pays all these things, and all of a sudden the husband becomes disabled or hurt, you can't get into that checking account to pay your mortgage.
That's a problem.
Because it's in an individual name. It's not in a joint name. So you have to think about the accounts. Who will pay for out of these? You could potentially even have a joint account or title it differently in the event that there was something to happen. But it's thinking through all these things. How will it work? And you know, I always go back to what happens if you die, what happens if you get disabled, what happens if you get sick. Ask those questions.
It's
on
kind of
all
depressing.
Of the different,
people don't like to go there.
Of course not, especially when you're getting married and you know.
You're thinking about the future, but you really need to. So you're suggesting that people can actually sit down with you and do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You also say people should revisit all their beneficiaries. And probably, especially if there are major life changes, like if you get married.
Well, I have had, so often people will come in and they have a life insurance policy that they've had for a long time, or they have their 401k, and one of their parents is their beneficiaries. And they've never changed it to their spouse. And the same is true if you have children, then you start to change these beneficiaries. So, or a previous wife on an insurance policy. I mean, that is really critical. It's critical for everybody.
Yeah.
It's critical for everybody, but particularly when you're getting married.
The other things you say are review your medical, life, disability, and car insurance. If you're changing your name, you have to notify Social Security and the DMV, financial institutions as well. joint or separate accounts, which Amy brought up, which is a great thing to discuss, especially if you can't access the other person's account. And then discuss your budget. And you always, in every segment, you bring up the B word.
The budget word, the budget word. Because once again, if you have goals and you're going to set goals, and believe it or not, a lot of people don't set goals, but if you're going to set a goal that we want to contribute to our retirement accounts, we want to buy a house, we want to go on a vacation.
Finance, education.
You have to have some sort of a budget to get you there. And for some reason, that whole idea of being on a budget has a negative connotation. But I do want to throw in one thing that you talked about, absolutely critical. Make sure you have your powers of attorney for health care. We remember the Terry Schiavo case and the whole thing years and years ago. Once you turn 18, even if you're married, you can't make those decisions for each other. And I remember my mother years ago, I said, Mom, you and Dad need a power of attorney. She said, I've been married to him for 40 years. I can do anything I want with him. I said, not really. Marriage doesn't give you the right to do that. So you absolutely have to have that power of attorney for finances and power of attorney for health care. And people say, well, I don't have anything. Those are two things that you do. You have your life and your health, and in the event that something would happen, where I mentioned that savings account or checking account to attach to, if you had the power of attorney, you could have access to it, which would be a protection. So there's lots of important things. There's safety nets. I think a lot of times when couples get married, you want to have children, you've got those wonderful little triplets. You know, if you can't, you have to protect them in the event that you die and that you have life insurance. And even if you are married and you don't have children yet, insurance is so much cheaper when you're younger. So those are the things to just kind of talk about. What do I want?
Well, and there's a great website. It's themoneycouple.com that you just told me about this morning. Go to that website because it's got great information and resources on it. Again, it's called themoneycouple.com. And want to mention your free financial guidebook for women, which is fantastic. It's absolutely free. You can get a copy of it by calling 262-691-3200 or email Tracy@ellenbecker.com. You can also find it at ellenbecker.com on the Investment Outlook Insights and Research page. And if you're looking to tie the knot for the first time or the second time, you should call Karen. If the thought really of figuring out your finances in a new marriage is overwhelming, you can call her. If you or your fiance or spouse haven't found someone in the area or someone that you're comfortable with, it's a great idea to call and just sit down and talk. Again, the phone number is 262-691-3200. The website is there. And you can listen to Karen's full-length Money Sense radio show by going to moneysenseradio.com. Great to have you. That was a lot.
That was
wasn't
lot.
It?
That really was.
I think I have to rest.
Yeah. Great to have you. Thank you so much. Good information. Karen.